Good morning. I wanted to share with you today how to decorate a tree. And you need to know that every tree is beautiful because you did it and you put your heart and soul and love into it. So I wanted to give you a few tips that maybe would be helpful or beneficial to those people just starting to decorate trees or different things that they do. One thing I might mention or take note of is, do you see that little foot pedal thing? That is great for turning a tree on and off, so you don't have to crawl behind things or unplug or whatever. So that's a good thing to do. Sometimes people ask about if they should do a real tree or artificial tree. I would say do what makes you happy. I like an artificial tree because I usually decorate early. I don't like pine needles all over. I have grandkids and it just wouldn't work. So let's start with the lights and the setup. Like I set the tree up. I would suggest wearing gloves. They can be rubber gloves, they can be whatever gloves, to fluff your tree. So usually, you know how when you get a tree and it's been in the box, it comes and it looks like that. Everything's all mushed together. So what you do is you would take it and separate your branches and then step back and look, because that way it's fuller, it's easier to hang your decorations, and that makes your tree look fuller and more alive. So the reason I wear gloves is because otherwise you look like you baptized a cat, because you'll be all scratched up and stuff. So now, also, if you do not have a pre-lit tree and you are putting lights on, my suggestion would be that you don't want to just go around a tree like this on the outside. What makes a tree magical or interesting is the depth to it. So make sure you have lights inside and just not on the outside. And I often will go like in a zigzag pattern and then overlap them, or I'll go like in and then out and then in and then out, so that your tree looks well lit and balanced. Tree skirt, tree collar, what's kind of the deal? These days, the tree collar is very, very popular. I chose this one because it's wicker and it's rustic, to go with my rustic themed tree, and it just keeps everything neat and tidy. Some people prefer a tree skirt. That is totally fine if that's what you want to do. I often suggest, if you are going to use a tree skirt, to put tissue paper or something under it to make it a little fuller, because otherwise it's just sort of like flat. And then you have this stem and then this tree. So try to balance things out a little, put the skirt closer, prop it up with tissue paper or something, or pillows, so that it looks a little more appealing to the eye. What I typically like to do is put, again, my ribbon or my things in first, because that fills in spots, and then you work your way out. So I would start in the tree, basically go around, twist and turn it. I have 3 different ribbons, and then you work your way up. And again, I wouldn't suggest just wrapping it like that. Make it interesting, stick it underneath, through, and give it some, so that it looks interesting. We'll put it through. This is just a little tree, but it's in our basement and it works well. And do you see how I'm kind of tucking it in? Because sometimes too that hides cords, and it's giving it interest. And you can pull lights over it or under it. Again, I try to do it so it's not just wrapping like that, that it has some interest, that you've gone up and down through. So we have our first ribbon, and like I said, you can separate it. Now we'll move on to, I always work biggest to smallest, and this tree is all rustic and the like almost like the buffalo check, the plaid. Let's see what that looks like. That'll work okay. And then our little black and white. Now this one is wired. Another tip I want to give you with wired ribbon is often if you say have an area where you just need something small and you don't, or it won't fish through perfectly on its own, you can take this, cut it, and then just put like a twist tie or a wire, and then you can stick it in your tree just like that. I've done that as well. Or on a mantle, sometimes you can't fish ribbon all the way through. We'll just cut it and make little bows just to stick in. So that's something else that you might want to think about. So this one, I'm going to go the other way. All right, so do you see how it's starting to kind of fill up the tree that was normally a sparser tree, and it gives it some interest and some depth because you're decorating from the inside out. Let's put on our tree topper. So I think now we've got the tree top, we've got the ribbons. We can start with the ornaments. You can start with bigger ones and your favorites. Try to put your favorites throughout. The other thing, things always look better in multiples of 3 or 5. So try to go like 1, 2, 3 or something like that. So let's put on these bigger reindeer. And you know what, let your kids help. Like I always let my boys help. I somehow had this feeling it would be like, you know, Norman Rockwell and we'd all drink hot chocolate and have fun. And of course it was never like that. And they would put all the reindeer together and make them do unmentionable things. And so it, you know what, but it was fun. The kids still talk about the fact that they would try to put all ornaments like in a 1-foot square and see how they could irritate their mother. So just fun like that. They still talk about it. So don't be afraid to let your kids help and be part of the process. So the other thing you can do, sometimes if a branch is too long or too short, just bend the branch so that it sort of positions where you want it to be so that it sits nice. So like I mentioned, if one is there, put one here and say one here, so that you have, again, that interest factor and that it doesn't look like they're all in the same spot. So this tree is sort of a rustic theme. I chose the rustic because the basement is rustic, and as you can see, the wood and the fireplace and that, and it just goes with it. Like I said, never be afraid to stick things deeper in. That's what gives your tree kind of interest and the magic. Then let's put these little rustic balls on. Again, those are just meant for more inside so that the tree looks fuller, has more interest. This little moose rides his sleigh. That was one of my kids' gifts to me one year for Christmas, so I cannot not put Mr. Moose on. All right. There. All right. This little bear as well was a gift. This is probably 25 years old, but he goes on the tree every year. Okay, we are moving right along. Doesn't really take that long once you get started and you kind of know your ornaments. Notice how I've gone from larger ornaments to smaller ornaments, and now it's just the littler guys that you're putting on for some filler. All right, let's do the antlers. These are one of my favorites just because they're kind of unique and different. So, and these, again, sometimes I just set in. I don't even necessarily hang them, but you can just set them in. and it can really add. As far as Christmas things, I probably got these at Michael's, these antlers, but I buy stuff at Canadian Tire, Home Depot. Target used to be really good for that. PV Mart, I've got things, of course, Winners Home Sense, but probably my favorites would be Walmart and Canadian Tire. Now, I'm going to take my pine cones that I've collected. These bigger ones have come from BC when we've been on holidays. But again, I will just lay them on the branches, and sometimes it just fills in a spot where, hang on, perhaps you need something. And you know what? Make your tree as full or as bare as you want, because ultimately you're the one who will enjoy it and like looking at it. And voila, our tree is done. So I hope that helped. I hope you got the feeling of working from the inside out. Start with the lights, fluff, ribbon, and then work out to your smaller ornaments. That's a wrap.